Recording? All right. Ready?
Yes.
Welcome, my beautiful spiritual family, to the Bodhi Life Podcast. I'm Bodhi RP, and we have a fantastic show for you today. This woman you've heard of and you've seen her work plastered all over social media, unless you've been living under a rock. She has the power to funnel the light of the higher heavens out into this world in the form of her refined talent and gift that is this exquisite art that you see behind us. She is a spiritual warrior, moving obstacles out of her way to deliver this light to this humanity. Artsoldier77, as she's known on Instagram, otherwise known as Kamora Jones in this reality. Thank you so much, Kamora, for being with us. How are you today?
Thanks for having me. I'm honored.
Awesome. We have so many questions to ask you. We're big fans of this art. We've seen it, as I mentioned, all over social media, and it's absolutely phenomenal what it does to people, as you already know, I'm sure, with the feedback that you've received from it. But I've seen people be in complete shock and awe when they first see these images for the very first time. And so we want to really dive deep into the reasons behind the existence of this art and why, if you would allow us to take that journey with you.
Sounds great. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. So let's get started. Just to give you a little bit of insight into what we're aiming at with this conversation is, first of all, we want to ask about how you developed this gift and talent, how you first discovered it within you. How does a human being go through the process of recognizing that there's something very special within them, and then refining that talent so that it becomes a tool, a weapon, a useful function in this world that we can contribute. And then we want to know how a human being goes through the process of deciding what to do with this gift. Why choose to do what you choose to do with it?
Right.
So first of all, tell us how old you were when you first started drawing, or when you discovered this talent, and how was that process of discovery for you? How did that feel in your human experience?
Well, my mom says that I was 3 when I started drawing, as a lot of parents do. And it was a natural thing for me. I think it was a wonderful way for me to analyze the world around me. I maybe wasn't thinking about it in that intellectual of a way from the very beginning, but it was definitely something when I realized that I could take an idea and manifest it in the physical reality. Anything. It didn't have to make sense. The physics didn't need to make sense. It didn't need to be something that was sanctioned by someone. It was just something I could kind of bring forth. And that the more I refined my ability to connect my mind with my hand, the more I'd actually be able to do that. And so I would draw like all the other kids, but then I had this connection with it, like it was an old friend that I'd known for a long time.
Wow, that's amazing. In yoga, there's what they call samskaras, which are past life impressions that stay with us. They say that when a human being has a natural talent that instantly comes out and is amazing, it's usually something that they've refined in past lives, according to that belief anyway.
I agree. I actually believe that. I believe that now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that resonates with you when you talk about how you discovered this talent within you.
Yes. And it, maybe that wasn't something that occurred to me at the beginning. I grew up somewhat religious, and then I got very religious in my teens, as I was indoctrinated into Christianity. But my mom was always Christian. She was always very religious, and so I was really interested in astronomy when I was a young kid, and like the idea of space and stars and galaxies and other worlds and cyborgs and robots and these beings that existed in different worlds, that really kind of spoke to me. And just to be, kind of reductive, yeah, that speaks to a lot of kids. And there were a lot of cool comics. I'm in my mid-40s. There were a lot of cool comics coming out, a lot of really cool anime coming out. But there was something about me saying what I needed to say on the paper that was very unique to me. And I was sort of clandestine about it, concerning how I approached it. Yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah.
It's the way that you're describing it, it almost sounds like it felt like power,
Yes.
in the sense that you're describing that it's something very unique to you, that
Yes.
has your own nature that you're putting out into the world, that you're has your stamp on it, basically, as opposed to reading somebody else's comics.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I grew up on old school anime. I grew up on comics. But the thing is that from the jump, it seemed like it was really important for me to say what I needed to say. And this is when I was very young and I didn't really have any training. It was more of like aptitude. I like to use the word aptitude, which is a word
Okay.
that I don't really hear a lot of people talk about anymore. Maybe I'm just not listening to the right things. But within that aptitude, it was like, yeah, I came here to draw, you know, but not just to draw what I see, to draw stuff that's coming from within, just to create stories.
Right.
And so even before I had any training, any sort of academic training, it was just kind of there. I have this old picture from like, I think it's from like third grade, where I drew this picture of Las Vegas in the future. And it's pretty, I think it was like an assignment, and it's pretty accurate. It's pretty funny. Like I have a little construct that kind of looks like New York, New York, you know,
Yeah.
it like it's there.
Wow.
And then the tram is there too,
Right.
you know, so
Right.
that's in there. But I think they were kind of talking about that at that time as well. So yeah, I mean, it was really important for me to say what I needed to say. And of course, I tried to draw other things. I tried to draw like comic characters and stuff, but that really didn't appeal to me the way that my imagination did.
Right. Right.
But it was
So
natural. It felt so natural when I was just drawing pencil, crayon, whatever. Yeah.
do you feel like there was a very specific moment that made you recognize, refine this,
Mm.
develop it?
Mm.
Like, was there a moment where you recognized you had to put in some work
Mm.
to take your natural talent and develop it further into something that was more refined? Or was it just through the natural love of your passion, your art, continuously doing it, and that's how it developed?
Well, for me, my parents aren't artists. Uh, my sister would always do, just for context, my sister would always do clothing designs and stuff and interior designs.
Okay.
And so I feel like I didn't understand what the path was for a young artist training to become a professional artist.
Right.
And so there's a part of this that was sort of like, oh, I really like drawing. I'm just going to keep doing it. And then all artists have this like weird ego, even when they're really young. So there was that component of like, don't tell me what to do. This is my art. And then, you know, I had a teacher, one of whom was here for the opening for this show.
Okay.
One of my first art teacher. She goes way back, but you know, she's a colorist. She used lines and stuff like that. And so even now, some of the pieces in the gallery, very much, I didn't realize it until she was here for the opening of the show, that she made a huge impression on me. It's really weird.
Okay.
You know, so the thing is that, yeah, it was more like it wasn't until maybe I got into high school that I realized, oh, there's like a development path, you know, for skill development
Right.
within what you're going to be. Because some people are painters, some people are draftsmen, some people are illustrators. There's all these different disciplines that the layperson maybe doesn't know about if they're
Right.
not studying art academically.
Right.
And so when so ninth and 10th grade, you know, so I was drawing and drawing, like the teachers all recognized. I remember in fourth grade, I drew some geometry, like some cubes and stuff. And they were like blown away about how I was drawing these cubes. And I'm like, they're just cubes. They're just three-dimensional constructs. Like I understand, I was always sucked at math,
Yeah.
but like I could draw these three-dimensional expressions of, you know, constructs, right?
Right.
Of constructs within consciousness. And I maybe didn't know I was doing that. It was just really easy for me to do that. And that was one of the reasons, that was one of the times I kind of knew, oh yeah, you know, I need to draw more. And then people would reinforce it. My parents reinforced it. They were very supportive.
Nice.
But it was sort of like natural. And this isn't to say, I'm not saying that you can't develop, you know, a skill, like maybe it's dormant, maybe you need to bring it out, maybe you're a late bloomer, you know,
Right.
maybe you're fifth. There's people in their 50s
Right.
who are like just their whole life they had to work and grind and didn't have the opportunity. And then they put a friend of mine here in town, just, you know, put her paintbrush on the canvas like back in 2012, and she's amazing, like no formal training. And so you start to know. For me, I did have quite a period. I went to ninth and 10th grade at a regular high school, and then I went to Las Vegas Academy for 11th and 12th because the arts program had just started like maybe a year or two before that.
Okay.
So that was intensive art training. That was like the equivalent of like maybe college course training
Right.
at LVA.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty hardcore.
So it wasn't until you were an adolescent or in high school that you actually recognized consciously, let's say, I need to put some structure behind this
Mm-hmm.
and really refine and head in this specific direction?
Yeah, LVA had started. It was kind of a big school. One of my second oldest art teacher, who's at Vegas High. I went to Vegas High like in 9th and 10th. She was really good. She was a colorist. She was like a painter. And LVA opened up, and there was a lot of marketing for how they were training artists, and they were doing a lot of photorealism and observational drawing, which is all academic. And it was sort of like, yeah, if you want to get good at drafting, if you want to get good at, from an academic standpoint, from understanding how to approach things and how to observe the world around you, you want to understand your values, you want to understand, symbols, you want to understand patterns, you want to understand the art fundamentals, that you need to get into like a conservatory type program.
Okay.
And so it wasn't until like literally like maybe like 9th or 10th grade that I understood that.
Okay.
Just because I wasn't in a like an art family.
Right.
Like some kids grow up and their parents are photographers, or their parents are painters, or their parents teach art. I didn't really grow up with that, but my parents always put me in different classes and stuff, so that was really cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What is it that is guiding you to head into a very specific direction? Like you mentioned, for example, you could be an illustrator,
Mm-hmm.
all of the other things you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
What guided you into what you were doing specifically?
So at LVA, this is a really good example. At LVA, there was like a creative writing class. This teacher was an amazing teacher, and she taught kids how to develop stories.
Okay.
And so I had to do the storybook, and it was with this kid. But I also wrote this other short story that I had to do, and I was explaining these movements of a figure through an environment. And I was talking about how the light was cascading off of their body. So I was adding dimension with words, not with lines, not with colors, but with words. And so I was building out the dimensions of this character. But I was also doing that with drawing and painting as well.
Right.
And so I had these very serious, intensive art classes where we're doing these still lifes, and we're drawing figures, and we're studying the old masters, and we're doing all these different representational pieces,
Right.
in order to understand form and value and line. And then I'm also making up stories. And so this concept of the story had always been there. And so I got like I think I got indoctrinated into the church when I was maybe like 10 or 11 or something. And I kind of went because my friend, they had this youth group, and they gave candy, and then they had like
Right.
puppet shows and whatever, right? But like as I got into it, over the years, the Christian Bible, there were things in it, there were mystical things in it that I thought were more interesting than the religion itself. I was like, I didn't really care about the religion. But then they're talking about Isaiah's vision of the seraphim with the 6 wings and the eyes all over their bodies.
Right.
And they're talking about Ezekiel's vision of the cherubim, with the 4 wings, and the hands like a man and the feet like a calf, right? And the 4 heads, the man, the ox, the lion, the eagle. It's like, so there are these mystical concepts, and the book of Revelation is mirroring those concepts. And then you have like the Apostle Paul is talking about the armor of God. He's personifying different aspects of Christianity in accordance with pieces of armor, and he's saying you're fighting against spiritual wickedness in high places. And so there's this idea of the spiritual realm, this parallel or whatever it is. It's intermingling with who we are. And that was sort of my entry point into understanding, oh wow, like what is this thing? And so people had been explaining that in movie, like there are other texts, that had talked about that, but in movies, people talk about that, right?
Yeah.
And anime, there were always stories about the spiritual realm, and about demons coming through or angels coming through. And so I spent a good deal of my teenage years drawing Christian art, like drawing that spiritual realm with like angels and demons and people praying, and then people casting on the chains breaking. I did a lot of that in my teenage years, while I was learning my art fundamentals and figuring out what I wanted to do. And for a long time, that's what I did. I wanted to do that. I did some little booklets, like I got really into Christianity. Yeah.
And it was because you were into the theology, the religion as a whole. Is that right?
I feel like I would say that at the time, yeah, I felt like I had a relationship with Christ.
Right. Okay.
Right. But then also I'm an artist. And so there's these aspects of Christianity that are like, okay, well, thou shalt not make any graven images, So okay, so you're not supposed to be drawing and painting things, but the Catholics have always done that.
Right.
Right, the Catholics did that because in the 1600s, like people didn't know how to read, so they commissioned artists to paint these beautiful pieces
Right.
to illuminate the scriptures.
Right.
And so for me, I was like, oh, it's bullcrap. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we can visualize it. Like, people aren't getting downloads. And I didn't know the term download, it was prophecy at the
Right.
time.
Right.
Right. So it was like, no, I'm going to draw this, and I'm going to speak to the youth. I'm going to speak to myself, and I'm going to make a story out of it. And the story was more conceptual. It never really amounted to much, but I did a lot of paintings and drawings of this stuff.
Right.
That was my entry point into understanding spirituality, albeit through through a religious modality, a traditional religious modality.
That's so amazing, because the thing that it helps me recognize, or at least maybe understand a little bit better about your path, is that you developed your gift, which may not have simply just been the ability to draw as beautifully as you do,
Thanks.
but also the ability to perceive
Mm-hmm.
or paint. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. No, perceive is the word I use.
Yeah.
That is the word that I use.
Yeah.
I actually don't think of it. What's weird is, yeah, I mean, some of these pieces, like here, you have this piece. There's lines. There's a base color. There's lines, and then there's textures in the form of colors that I've picked out. And then I'm using these lines. I'm mainly using line to define the overall forms. Okay, it's always kind of been like that for me. So I've carried that from the time that I was very young. And yeah, there were paintings I did in high school that were completely, like I'm building out the form, I'm building the structure, like I'm working on the geometry of the arm or of the anatomy. So I did that. I had to do some of that in college too. But that was something that never really spoke to me. The power of the line is something that always spoke to me, and the line in a sort of, as I was talking to Nancy, like an automatic writing sort of way,
Right.
or a channeling sort of way. But then when I was in the church, I couldn't say that. It was, these are prophets. You have a prophetic gift.
Right.
And then once I got out of the church, years later now, it's you're channeling, and then this is light language. In the church, that was called speaking in tongues, So it's funny how things have sort of like transmigrated, if you will,
Right.
from one thing into the next, and things are shared, and things are stolen, and then things are rebirthed in different times and in different spaces.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You left me a little bit speechless right there.
Well, no, I mean, you said perception. Just to kind of expand on that, you said perception. I actually, yes, I'm drawing and painting. I like to draw and paint. I would literally just draw and paint all day if I could.
Yeah.
And in a sense, I do. But there's something about messaging and how a piece of art isn't just a representation of something. It's messaging. It's you're putting information into someone's eyes.
Right.
And what you eat is what you are. And so you're eating with your mouth, you're eating with your eyes, you're eating with your ears.
Right.
And so the question is what are you going to manifest?
Right.
And that's the hardest thing about being a professional artist is, okay, number one, you got to like make money so you can pay your bills or whatever. So a lot of us have commercial art jobs. I have a commercial art job during the day. And of course I want to do this full time. Of course I do. But there's this component of it that's like, maybe this is also about balance. It isn't just, I can get kind of linear in my desire to make it this one thing. It isn't just about that. It's about becoming a balanced individual.
Absolutely.
And being all in my human experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. And speaking about balance, I believe that your experiences with religion and spirituality and many other religions that you had were probably also ways that you developed that gift.
Yes.
That gift of perception.
Yeah.
That not just developing the gift of this artistic gift, but also the internal gift of recognizing the aspects within that you're attempting to translate through this beautiful art.
Yeah, when I was younger, my mom would go to these, what they were called holiness churches, and they would dance around, fall out, shake on the floor.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I know it's what you're talking about. Yes.
So it's kind of interesting because a lot of people in the metaphysical community are engaging in those sort of allowing, the energy of higher consciousness or of the mother or of the father of whatever higher consciousness they're connecting with,
right,
to speak to them, to dwell in them, and to clean them, and to and to impart wisdom into them.
right.
So in a sense, it could be said that how you limit yourself regarding your sort of modality of thought regarding spirituality is what you sort of tie yourself to.
Right.
But I don't think any of it's really that different. I think that if you believe this one set of things, then maybe that is your reality. But
Right.
also, as we listen to people who are having all kinds of different psychedelic experiences and near-death experiences, there's so many testimonies now.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's like people are having the experience that they need to have, and not all of them are the same.
Right.
And some atheists are having this very spiritual, expansive consciousness experience, and then some Christians are having these very hellish experiences.
Right.
So what does that mean? That means that you're getting what you need to get.
What you need. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I completely agree. You mentioned it translates into each other what, for example, Christianity says and what spirituality says. And I believe that too. I believe that the more you understand the theological language of whatever religion or philosophy you're studying, the more language you have to understand and communicate that.
Yes.
In the sense that I don't really see any religion or modality as limiting.
Right.
It's just our understanding of that religion or modality.
Right.
And the more we know of one specific one or of all of them, the more we expand ourselves within, right?
I love it. And I didn't even actually answer your question. I love that. Thank you. I didn't even answer your question. Yes, I do believe that Christianity opened me up. That was the door. That was the doorway into understanding. Like, they called it the spiritual gifts, is what they called it in the church, right?
Okay.
They called it the spiritual gifts. And so I went to this other church, like in my teens, that one of my friends invited me to, and it was like they had these worship services that were like an hour and a half sometimes, and some guy would be up on the keyboard, and he was just like channeling into the keyboard. One guy was walking in place, and he had his eyes closed, and he just kind of reaches out and he reaches for this door, and he opens up the door, and so he's in that space. So there's all these different things going on. Another person is shouting to the heavens, another person is dancing with the flag,
right?
And then but I see the same sorts of things, and so yeah, you're right, like it's not limiting. I do feel, though, I guess at this point, post sort of like where I'm at now, that maybe Christianity is a little limiting for me. I feel that for me.
Yeah.
I don't think, but I would never project that onto anybody else.
You've gotten what you needed.
So I appreciate what you're saying. Yeah.
And now you're onto something different.
Yeah.
That makes absolute
or
sense.
Maybe it isn't. Like, maybe I just assume it's different, and that the whole time it was all unraveling to be this thing because this is what it is for me.
Right.
And that was just the what is it, the gauntlet or whatever, or the training period, or whatever that is.
Absolutely.
The Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, whatever.
I absolutely believe that. Absolutely. Simply because I mean, whatever it is that you learned in the past, even through Christianity or everything else that you've done, really has led you up until this point, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You couldn't have been this person and gotten to this very specific point,
right,
unless you went through all of this stuff,
That's right.
including the religion, including the Christianity,
That's right.
and everything else. So
That's right.
So who knows? Maybe Christianity was designed so that you could get here to where you're at now.
Right, exactly.
But the thing that the thing that's really important for me to communicate, especially to our followers and our viewers, is how this process of going out into the world and doing things, and exploring, and saying, hey, I might try this, I might try that. Let me go into this Las Vegas Academy. Let me go into this religious group or this religious organization and do. The more you did, the more you started receiving information about yourself.
That's right.
The more you discovered yourself and recognized what was here to contribute to the world. So the refining aspect, it sort of happened, yes, voluntarily when you went to this academy, but it also happened sort of
when I went to college and everything
unknowingly,
too.
By going out and doing.
There were a lot of steps.
Right.
There were a lot of steps. There were a lot of steps. And so, yes, I went to LVA. I only got to go for 2 years because it didn't start until I was in like 10th grade, the arts program.
Right.
And then I went to college in Colorado for 2 years. I went to the Art Institute in Colorado, in Denver. What's cool is that we were housed with music students from the Mott School of Music. So we had conservatory music students and visual arts students in the same dorm. And so I learned a lot during that time. I got into my first like adult relationship at that time. So that was a whole thing with art and living, away from home
Right.
and being with a bunch of different types of artists. And I got to go to like the person I was dating, I got to go to some of their classes, and so like, yeah, so I studied media arts and animation in college for 2 years. And then I lived there again for a year. And then I came back to Vegas and I did some freelance work. And then I went to the Art Institute that was here for a while. I went there for another 2.5 years, maybe, to study to finish up my bachelor's.
Okay.
And that was all a lot of technique. That was all learning digital art, learning the digital art process, learning
Right.
how to draw with the Cintiq, which is like a monitor that you draw on and sounds like a stylus, and learning 3D modeling and 3D sculpting, and learning a bit about animation and compositing. And so the college that I went to, we had figure drawing classes too. So it was a holistic approach to understanding the media arts in regards to illustration and modern forms of illustration and modern forms of conceptualization and visualization. And
Right.
so yeah, so I had a lot of training. Like boxers have to train a
A
lot before a
lot.
fight.
Yeah. And now that
Yeah.
you've expanded on that even more,
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you went through the extent of maintaining the order and structure in your life and focus that you needed to, for example, get your bachelor's.
Yes.
That's a lot of training. Let's call it general training
Yes.
in all aspects of life,
Yes.
right?
That's right.
That just hones you more.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm bringing this up is because I want people out there to understand that we all have a gift. We
Yeah.
all have a talent,
That's right.
and we just have to discover it. And we have to discover it by going out there and exploring and understanding more of ourselves.
Mhm.
And once we find out things about ourselves and recognize unique aspects of ourselves, develop them through the order of our consciousness. Oh, in awareness, develop them, hone them,
That's
do
right.
what you need to do to refine them.
Mhm.
Because when you look out there at people that are succeeding, that are doing amazing, beautiful things, they're not there because they got lucky.
That's right.
Nobody's there because they got lucky.
That's right.
Even the people that were born with amazing talents and amazing benefits in this life, they still had to take that and put in a lot of work
That's right.
to put that talent out, to refine it, to make it something very, very special.
That's right.
So it clearly shows with what you're telling us,
Mhm.
the extent that you went through to refine this talent.
Well, it's business, right? Business is all about investment. And so if you think about your spiritual gifts and what you incarnated to do as a type of spiritual currency is the biggest form of investment in my opinion. And whether you know you're doing it or not, whether you know that that's what you're actually doing, you're doing it. And that starts with, as you said, it starts with feeling it. You have to feel it. It's like a part of you. It's like a
Right.
part of your soul. It's a part of your soul memory. I always like that term, soul memory.
I love it.
And soul memory is when you feel something and you have a natural aptitude for it. You don't have to be amazing at it, but it's something that just won't leave you alone. It's like an attachment.
Yes.
It's like a passenger, but sometimes it's also like a component that's interwoven into your cells. It's
Okay.
there. There's nobody can pull it away from you. And let's acknowledge people who maybe when they're young don't have the support that they need to develop their talents.
Absolutely.
You grow up in a family who, you have to work, you have to grind, you have to help your family stay together because it's falling apart. I acknowledge that as a professional. I like acknowledge that, but in that sense, the hard thing about incarnating as a human is that it is hard. And as a kid, even if you have really supportive parents, really supportive role models or caretakers, you kind of are on your own, except for the fact that you have like your concurrent lives, your past lives. You have source, you have the collective consciousness.
Right.
Nowadays, you have the internet. You have all these different things, all these different resources and tools. And so I think that you have to feel it. If there's something you like to do, explore it. Maybe it doesn't go anywhere, but maybe it does. You're going to hone in on it. But if you don't care, you're spending all this time not focusing on it, you want to look a certain way to people, you don't want to look like a fool, you tease people who are serious about their gifts, because you don't want to take anything seriously. That's to me, that's fear. That's just a symbol of fear.
Absolutely.
So that diving in, you lose yourself in it. My religion is the creative interfacing I have between myself and higher consciousness and creativity in general. That's my religion. But I didn't know that until, quite a few years ago.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And I don't, and I got serious. I got serious in my 20s. After I got my bachelor's, about a year before I got my bachelor's, I met my boss that I currently work for, and I've been working at the company I work for about 17 years doing game graphics.
Amazing.
And that's fun. There's some cool stuff. It's very secular.
Yeah.
Can I say that? But also a lot of what's going on now with my art and the design elements, the compositional understanding of composition, understanding of design, understanding of communication of ideas through line and structure. Honestly, a lot of this would not exist if I hadn't worked in this very secular job, because I've learned some very high level design skills in that job. So when we try to separate the spiritual from the secular, and we try to say, well, you can't be, of this world and all this weird stuff. No, you are of this world.
Right.
You can't X out of the game. Like that, this is the game you're playing. You can't, you can't separate it. Everything you need is going to come from the whole of your experience, and that is a hard one for super spiritual people to take.
Right.
I literally I don't like to use the word but honestly, I mean, my corporate job, all the characters design, environment design, symbols, everything like I've had to do has helped me understand hierarchy of design in regards to this series. And so that I've worked my butt off for the last 17 years learning those techniques and working hard and having some sleepless nights and stuff like that.
Right.
And I'm currently at a point where I'm evaluating new things in my life and seeing what that next doorway is.
Right.
Which doesn't mean anything, but it does mean but it means something to me, and I have to kind of keep that to myself, because I am clandestinely involved in this. Absolutely. And what this is going to become. Absolutely. I am this is my mission. So I can't, so the other thing you want to do is you want to be kind of covert about it. Right. Right. You're dropping seeds into the world. There are people who don't like that, and they don't like it maybe just because they're not there yet. Right. They're not aware.
You have to be strategic.
You have to be strategic, and some people aren't into that, and that's cool too. Yeah. Some people need more photorealism. So,
right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. I think well, first of all, you said a lot.
I'm sorry.
No, you're very aware. You're very aware, as is obvious by your art and by the way you carry yourself and the way you've conducted yourself in this life. But I think you sort of went into describing a little bit the difference between superficial spirituality and the real elevation of consciousness.
Yeah.
As in you're not trying to isolate yourself from any dimension of your life by saying, I don't like corporate America. I'm a liberal, free-spirited person that does this and that. You're understanding that aspect of your life is interconnected with every other aspect of your life.
Yeah.
And you're unifying that within yourself. You have a very, from what I can perceive, a very unified perception of all of the entire collection of experiences, and that's a real amazing thing. Obviously, I believe that really is the expansion of consciousness, the elevation of consciousness.
Wow.
That is what we do. We unify, and as we unify, we become one with the whole, as opposed to attempting to isolate ourselves from it by saying, I'm now this, those people don't know, or those people are wrong, because the only thing that we're doing there is continuing to play that game, that we're somehow better or have more or whatever we're trying to play mentally in an effort to validate ourselves. But what you're describing, as in the acceptance of all of these experiences, the acceptance of all of these dimensions of your life, it really is the unification.
Yeah, you get the unification is really important, and I'm learning more about it. I'm learning more about maybe developmental stages that I left out, because I got so focused on developing my artistic skills in my teens. I have a therapist right now, so which I always say therapy is a really good thing.
Absolutely.
There are certain things that I maybe didn't work on as much, in certain times, and that's not. I'm not judging myself for that. What I'm saying is that if you have the potential to help have professionals and people who are able to help you to key in, people are doing this all kinds of different ways now, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
if you have the potential to have some type of teacher, whatever that teacher may be, to help you to connect those synapses and explore, things that you need to work on, um, that in that humility, there is a breaking down of old ideas and old barriers, and realizing that, my spiritual experiences are not. I had one yesterday, during my dream states, every 3-4 months. I don't do the psychedelic experiences I've had have been on cannabis edibles, but I don't. The last time I did it was like 2 years ago, because it's very heavy. It's very, the stuff that you see in the
Yeah.
series is, I
Yes.
get that kind of information, and it's very disorienting, which is not bad. But the last one I did was like 2 years ago. But because I don't do it often, higher consciousness, my guides, my brain, every 3 to 4 months will give me a psychedelic dream.
Yes.
I cannot get away from it. And the thing is that my psychedelic dreams, my trippy spiritual dreams, are not like this. My dreams feel like who I am at my core. They feel organic, biological. They feel like higher consciousness, but they feel like some aspect of reality pushing me through another aspect of reality. They're tailored for me. They're scary and they're enlightening at the same time. And it pushes me in a way that is beyond acceptance. The term, I thought about this morning, the term kicking and screaming, like you're pulling somebody kicking and screaming
Yes.
to do something.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not only how my spiritual experiences have been, but that's how those dreams are. It's we need to show you this,
I think that
and we
sounds
don't
about
care,
right.
and we don't care if you're gonna be, we
Sounds
don't
about
care,
right.
and we don't care if you're gonna be like, if you're gonna feel weird for the next like week or 2 or
Yeah.
6 months.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, and I know you understand that. Yeah.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing.
Sorry for that tangent, but it's really important to understand that. Yeah, but I'm also evaluating things, and so sometimes things serve you for a season,
Yeah.
and then they don't, and that doesn't mean those things are bad. You got a lot out of that thing. Maybe they are bad. Maybe they were really bad, traumatic things, but like now you know better. But the thing is, the integration of those things,
Yes, ma'am.
and the integration is that it's good to have a person who can guide you through that. People, tools that can guide you through that, because you can be broken, you can be healed, you can be broken and healed, you can be broken but also enlightened. It's like there's all these different states of enlightenment, in my opinion.
Wow.
And so I'm at a point now where I'm trying to learn not to judge. I'm very human. I'm trying to learn not to judge experiences, and not to say, I hate this thing, this thing doesn't serve me anymore. Via my spouse knows, that I'm still very human.
Yes.
But I also understand that I can't, I dare not say that this one thing was I don't like that thing. It's
Wow.
it's something you really have to be careful of, because it could have been that one thing that shifted
Yeah.
the path.
We don't know, right?
Yeah, you don't know.
And we don't really need to know in a sense.
Yeah.
This life has been perfect.
Yeah.
We're here where we're at.
Yeah.
We're moving forward with whatever mission we feel we have to unfold in this world.
Yeah.
And we're doing that.
Yeah.
I really like what you mentioned right now as far as not utilizing medicines frequently, as in entheogens, psychedelic medicines.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I believe the medicines are very beneficial for certain people that need them,
Right.
that are in states of limiting belief or trauma response or very limited psychological states, that this medicine can allow them to see things for themselves in a way that unblocks them.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's also an aspect of that entheogenic community that thinks that the purpose is just to constantly be doing it. And I usually see people that are mishandling the medicines in that way not have frequent religious or spiritual experiences,
Mhm.
not have frequent insights,
Right.
but sort of really just go into the medicine for the for the for the purpose of sort of feeling a level of clarity and and cleanliness
Mhm.
that will go away in a week or two when they go back to the regular life they've been living.
Mhm. Mhm.
But the fact that you mentioned it's been 2 years since your last experience,
Mhm.
it was with cannabis edibles,
Yeah.
which is a very mild entheogen compared to some of the other ones,
Mhm.
and 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 the best part is that that process has led you into sort of recognizing the medicine within you
Mhm.
or understanding how
Oh,
to
that's well
receive
said.
the medicine within you,
That's well said. Yeah.
like these channelings, these dreams that are, I love how you put it, kicking and screaming, taking you into the truth, are the medicine that is feeling a little bit uncomfortable at the moment, like a sour spoonful of cough syrup or
Mhm.
something, right? But
Mhm.
will eventually make you feel better in
Yeah.
in alignment with the
Yeah.
truth,
Yeah.
in understanding, in awareness.
Yeah.
And
No, that's
so
right. That's
I love it.
the whole thing is, the whole series, 2016 I got really depressed, and then I read Journey of Souls by Michael Newton, which
Okay.
is like,
Yeah.
past life regression, and then I read like Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley,
Yes, I love
right?
that one.
And then started looking at like Terrence McKenna stuff back in
Okay.
2016, and I think he even said something about edibles. He was like, yeah, you can do edibles, the ancients, that, well, people in the old times, they didn't smoke it, they ate it.
Right.
I was like, oh, okay, so like, my spouse made like canna butter. It became legal. I'm kind of, I'm black, so I'm not trying to like go to jail or anything. So like yeah, so we cannabis became legal in 2017,
Yeah.
and my spouse made like canna butter. And what would happen is I'd come home from work, I'd studying all this stuff about chakras and consciousness and energy.
Yes.
We At that time we had been out of church for about, I don't know, 10 years or something, or we'd been out of the church for about 7 years, I think.
Okay.
And so I was trying to find. So that was at a time when I felt like my guides were like, let's find out what this is for you. Let's get back into this, but let's see where it goes here.
Yeah.
Let's get away. We're away from religion now. Okay, let's see. So I would come home from work, I'd pop a cookie, and that's how the series started. The series started back in 2017. It did not start like that. It started more with energy paintings and energy drawings
Okay.
of consciousness constructs. I was really studying astral projection at the time, and was able to not consciously do it, but I had quite a few interesting experiences with that as well.
When you say consciousness constructs, what are you referring to?
So what I'm referring to is, just as in the Christian church, there's this idea of demons and angels in this
Oh, like
spiritual
the mental
plane.
construct that represents.
Yeah, an idea within the
Got
spiritual
it.
realm. So
Yeah.
let's say the astral realm, which is the spiritual realm, which
Yeah.
is the metaphysical, it's all the same,
Yeah.
right? This space of perception that we don't see, whatever that is. Okay. I mean, you can look at it from a scientific point of view, you can look at it quantum, you can look at it whatever you want. So let's say that the spiritual plane that we see, right? So this all this liminal space here around here. And then you have this programming. When I say conscious constructs, this programming is a way in which an individual can jack into the system, but not just jack in, to work with the system itself.
Yes.
So you have these different, sigils here. Those are like different like codes. And so you're playing with different codes. You make different codes. You can, but because it's this thing created by source or God or whatever, it's a really free form medium in which to explore.
Right.
Life, existence is a free form medium. It is not confined to the decibels of the decimals of a mathematical system.
Right. Right.
It's not defined by
It's
the
not
limits of a
defined.
code system, of a code
Right.
language.
Right.
So conscious constructs are
I love it.
ways to work with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. I love how you said that they're not defined by anything, because
Yeah.
they're to define is to limit.
Yeah.
And
Look
the
look how complex the eye is.
exactly.
So you don't have to look at it from a purely spiritual, like, God made the eye like that. Like, the fact that it evolved over time within a certain type of construct, a material, biological construct, that's very spiritual.
Right.
That is like not only systematic in a very like sort of engineering kind of way. That's like, okay, who the hell thought of that?
Right.
Who thought of that? Like, did like one being think of that? Did we all think of that? Is it us that did it in some other place of perception?
Right.
Some other, channel? Who did that? That is exactly what art is. And so when an artist goes to make a song, to write notation, or to create dance moves, or to draw on paper, or to draw with pixels, or to 3D sculpt something, there's this transmission of ideas, and usually it's a mixing of ideas within the brain,
Right.
and then you try to create something that's original sometimes. But think about that: the complexity of the eye. Who made that? Who thought of that? Was it a group of beings? Was it us? Was it something completely different? That's what I'm trying to say. So when you have this aptitude for something, aptitude, right? That is almost like you're creating a new reality. You're creating something new. You're
Right.
bringing something new forward. And so you have to take that seriously. It's a huge investment. Indeed, there's a lot of risk. All things are risk. But risk for what? You need to be risk averse with creativity. That's how you know that if there is this thing called God, that God is like a really amazing being, because in all things is love. Love is like, when you see the fact that we can create buildings and cars, when you see the fact that nature exists in its state and it grows wherever it wants to grow, it doesn't care if you put pavement down, nature's going to grow through the pavement. There's this love of the craft.
Yeah.
That is in the hands of God. That's how you know what God is. This idea of religions taking God and making God this tyrant that doesn't match with what God is, with what we have to work with.
Right.
The universe is there's like black holes. There's like all these different ways in which the universe works. It's love in motion.
Yeah.
It never stops.
I love that.
That's what creativity is. Sorry.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Love in motion is what creativity is. I love it because the only thing I could think of when you were speaking right now was creation and creator.
Yeah.
And that's love.
And we're all that.
Yeah.
So
yes.
it's fractal. It cycles down.
Right.
But maybe it's more like cycling out, not cycling down. It's cycling out from a point.
I love that.
Yeah.
From a singularity outward.
Yes. Turning on the computer.
Yeah.
Turning on the TV.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So, wow, you're super deep.
No.
You're super deep
No,
and
no.
you're super aware. So we've already gone through way more than I was planning on, which is great because I'm sure that anybody viewing this is gonna eat it up because it's amazing information. It's really insightful. It's really profound, and it's, in my opinion, accurate in the sense that there is a truth. There is a truth to perceive. Maybe it's a truth that is beyond the perception of the human mind, but it is a truth that is unified and finite and complete and total.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a way to perceive it.
Yeah.
And I believe that you are in perception of it.
And no one individual is the center. We're all a part of the whole.
Right.
So your work is really important. You have to do your work. You have to accept that aptitude.
Right.
Like, just accept it. It's okay. It doesn't matter who accepts it or not. Not everybody's supposed to accept you.
There's always going to be somebody out there that loves what you do, loves how you do it, was made to be the spectator of the thing that you're creating. It's always going to be that way. You just do what you do.
Yeah.
And so now that you've walked us through this process, this complex process that has unfolded in your life of developing your talent, this is the real question. This is the question that I really wanted to dig into. This is the question that I'm sure everybody really wants to know, that is conscious, aware, that is elevating consciousness, that sees these images that you create. This is what we want to know. Okay. What we want to know is, you have an amazing talent. Why did you choose to focus that talent in a very specific niche, in a very specific type of image, in a very specific type of art
Mm-hmm.
that conveys a very specific symbolism, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
That there's something very on purpose about what you're drawing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so if you wouldn't mind taking us into what shifted your art from what you were previously drawing, which for example at one point was the Christian art
Mm-hmm.
and the Christian conceptual
Mm-hmm.
constructs.
Mm-hmm.
What shifted it from what you were previously drawing into what you're currently drawing?
Yeah.
How did that catalyst come about? What was it? How did it transform you? How did you begin that transformation process?
So when we left the church about, what was it, like 10 years ago? 12? Yeah, so we left the church about 12 years ago. Um, yeah, I was deep into Christianity, and then we left for various reasons, for very logical reasons, actually, just wanting to explore and other reasons. I went into this period of asking the question, like, about love, like, what is love? Like, why? I'm like, why are things sinful? Why is music sinful? Like,
Right.
I can hear mastery in this music. I listen to a
Right.
lot of like jazz fusion. I listen to a lot of old school like jazz fusion and stuff like that. And I'm listening to, these songs and this playing, and I'm like, wow, this is like the hand of God in this. This is like the language of God, like in this
Right.
music. This is the language of God in this art. I'm like, why is it sinful if it doesn't look a certain way? Right.
Right.
So it started there. And then I started drawing this thing called Socrates, which is you can see it actually if you go back in my Instagram, you just go back. It's this is utopian human world where there's like these dragons and stuff like that. But that's more of like an augmented reality kind of thing. That actually still exists in this universe. But I'm working on the graphic novel, so you'll have to wait. Okay.
Love it.
But I started wondering why aren't we utopian? Like, why aren't humans more peaceful with each other? Like, why are we not there yet? Right. And that is an assumption. I understand that that's sort of, some people think of that as, oh, that's a little idealistic. Okay, but like, why? Like, we're smarter. We have intelligence. We have technology. Why are we not better for it? It's not to
Right.
say that we aren't, but we kind of aren't. We
Right.
kind of aren't there yet.
I
So I started
completely
thinking
get
about
it.
that. I started drawing this utopian futuristic thing. I think Jacques Fresco is this guy. He had this thing called the Venus Project, which is like he was like a architect,
Okay.
and this is like a real person. He was like an architect, and so he had this whole group of people who were trying to design how what was it? It was like an utopian, it's like a capitalistic utopia could exist. He did this whole thing. I think he's dead now, but like he did this whole thing. And so we went into that, and then like I said, 2016, I was like, well, how could humans like get, what do we need to do to get better? Like, what do we need to do to like heal, to like get better, to move forward? I'm like, maybe we need mentors. It just kind of came to me like, oh, we need mentors. And it's like, well, what are angels? Like, angels are just higher dimensional beings that have more knowledge, have more power because they have more knowledge. Like, I started thinking of it like that. I'd been out of the church. I'm like, I don't want to do anything religious. And I started thinking, oh, what if these like higher dimensional like alien beings? And so, but that wasn't, but that was kind of like, they didn't look like this at first. Like, this is more of the prototypical kind of like, big-eyed alien kind of thing. It was more like, wow, okay, so maybe they're spirit guides,
Okay.
maybe people need to tap into their higher consciousness. And so, yeah, like 2017, when I would, come home and I would get into that space and I would connect with, the consciousness that I needed to connect with. Um, I started drawing these guides, and I started drawing angels in kind of a different way. You can actually go back on Instagram and look at that. And it was like, okay, like what is a mentor? That was the word that kind of came through me. What is a mentor? What is a guide? What would that intelligence need to look like? What would that information need to look like?
Right.
And so over time, it slowly sort of developed into not just this physical representations of these constructs within astral realm, within collective consciousness, but what if there were beings who had already figured it out?
Right. Okay.
So in a sense, I mean, that's kind of what angels are, right? Angels are the ones who have been given, imparted with this knowledge from God, or
Right.
Yahweh or Elohim or whatever,
Right.
and they are caretakers of that knowledge and that wisdom in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
What if there are these beings who were literally studying it on more of a scientific level, but
Right.
it also figured out how to manipulate it, but we're also trying to help humans covertly, right? So it sort of migrated. I'm kind of doing the same thing I've always been doing. As far as the style is concerned, that kind of came with the channeling, that came with the psychedelic experiences, that came with how it worked out. And when you're thinking about, I don't know if you guys can see this one over here,
Yeah.
network connections, it was very apparent to me after my first psychedelic experience that um, there are connections, that we're all like a big body,
Right.
and that there are all these nerves and veins and neurons and cells. And so that connectivity of cords and prongs and wires, you know, my first experience and my second experience, which is like a couple months away from my first what I call my bona fide like psychedelic, which was like Easter Sunday 2017. Um, it was very clear to me that
Was that the cannabis edible?
yeah. So I was doing, so what I would do is I'd come home, I'd take cannabis edible. This is 2017, and it brought me into those spaces.
Right.
It opened
Okay.
me up. And then Easter Sunday 2017, we had I don't know if we just had a lot of cannabis, but Vi had an experience as well.
Wow.
But that was a complete ego death. I had this closed eye vision where I saw these like pixels, you know, and one was like me and one was Vi. And then there were other components of that too. The second experience I had a couple months later, which was also an accident, I felt like I was put into this place of um, artificiality. So being able to look at things from the outside. And it was very clear to me at that time. I saw this, like, that was one of the first times I actually saw something that kind of looked like that too.
Okay.
Like this kind of code.
Yeah.
And people, yeah, I'd seen people online that were drawing that code, but that was the first time I actually saw it.
Right.
And it was on like some kind of key card or something like that.
Okay.
There was also this algorithm that was this type of like construct that was kind of folding in on itself. And it was a combination of my energy, my mom, my dad, and my two sisters. And they were it was kind of like ebbing and flowing, and their voices were the vibrations that were holding it together. Wow. And so I started to understand that there are these synapses that are all connecting. So I'm portraying it in a very sort of biological kind of way.
Right.
But there's this connectivity. We're not separate. There is no separation between anything. You are a node of consciousness in the sense that you are personalities who have different experiences, and you're storing that information, but you're also uploading and downloading that information. But you are a node connected to other nodes.
Right.
So all of that kind of came to me through drawing it and exploring it through art. So the feedback I got from that, art is a sort of scientific process too, in that you learn, you're shopping things through drawing and painting as well.
Right.
Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
So you're saying that it came through this art.
Yeah.
Do you feel like let's say the realization or the recognition was coming through still as you were creating this art?
Yes. It's like when you plug in to a specific source, say you plug into a socket, okay, you're going to get what comes with that, as long as you don't block it.
Right.
And try to like mediate it.
Okay.
When you're drawing, and a lot of artists will say this, when you're drawing, it's like you are downloading information as long as you're open to it. As artists, if you're trying to make something that's compositionally sound, something that people are going to actually like looking at, then yeah, you have to be a little discerning with how you disseminate the information on the canvas or on the paper or whatever. But if you're open, you can get a lot of information. And I think a lot of artists are doing that. They just don't realize it.
And when you say open, would you equivalent that to, let's say, like what is called the flow state?
Yeah.
Being in flow state.
Yes.
When you're
Yes.
creating? Yeah,
but then there's different kinds of flow states, right? So some people are creating with the intention of creating a product. So during the day I create certain type of product. And there's flow state in that. So when I say love is that this is the code, like, yo, you can do really bad stuff in the world and be in a flow state.
Yeah.
I'm saying bad because everybody would think what I'm thinking of is bad.
So you're saying being in a very specific frequency, let's say.
Yeah. Whatever frequency you're tied to, you can get into a flow state, or you can keep it very sort of mechanical. You can pick this, and you can pick this, and you can pick this, right? Or you can be in this flow state where the intention for me taking the cannabis edibles was to get the information. That was always the intention. The intention was always, once I understood about, how people are using psychedelic experiences or whatever, like once I understood that, I was like, okay, so why is that bad? Like, why is it illegal? And then like, I know now, I know now why it's maybe not the best solution for some people, depending on different things that you may have, going on mentally.
Right.
I understand now that whatever you're doing, it's going to bring up everything.
Right.
You're not going to be able to pick and choose what it brings up. When it comes to art is very similar in that you are the culmination of all you've ever been, and that is going to come out in the art.
Right.
So from a very mechanical point of view, this is very much the culmination of everything I've been working on. It's almost like the Christian art, but not.
Do you feel
Yeah.
like people can recognize an aspect of you when they look at your art?
I'm in another show at a gallery called Nuwu, another part of town.
Nuwu, absolutely, in Las Vegas.
Yeah, right. And so there's an artist here in town. She's an amazing photorealist, and I had never met her. And I guess she was looking at my art, and then we finally got a chance to kind of talk. And she's like, "Yeah," she's like, "You look like your art." And that happens a lot. Like that happens a lot between like people who are maybe like connected to certain frequencies. They're like, "Oh, you look like your art. Like you kind of look like that. Like that's I can feel your energy on that." Yeah.
That's awesome.
So within that flow state, so the one thing you got to think about, like from a creative standpoint, whatever it is you're doing, is being conscious within the flow state, but also being unconscious within the flow state. So you get to a point to where maybe it's what you're doing is kind of boring. Sometimes when I draw these, it's kind of boring, so I just turn off. But because I've done the work to connect my mind with my hand, with my soul, in doing that, I don't need to be that present. There's an algorithm to it. I say algorithm because that's exactly what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You're on another level. I love it.
Yeah.
So you had this experience in 2017.
Yeah.
You were taking cannabis edibles.
Yeah.
You were connecting,
Yeah.
recognizing the interconnectedness, let's say, of everything.
Yeah.
And at that point is when you started drawing these images to portray that?
Yeah, so these came, I want to say that these beings came much later, because I had a couple of different experiences over from 2017 on until like 2022, whatever.
Okay.
So these beings came, I think, like towards like that first year, like 2018 is when I started portraying these beings here. But yeah, the first couple of you can scroll back and look in the history too.
On your Instagram account.
Yeah, on the Instagram account, or the Facebook account doesn't go back that far. I have a sister Facebook account, which is also Artsoldier77, that has the same images. I just post them to both places.
Okay.
Some people don't like Instagram, so I barely like Instagram. So
really?
It goes. The first couple images were, the first one that I did was one called I think it was called like In the Flow or something like that. And it's got this being who's reaching out like this, and there's this air that's blowing this being back, and they're connected to the wind of the flow. I think that was literally the first one. And I remember the day that I did it, because it just was like a flash of insight. It was like, hey, why don't you think about these concepts that you're reading about, that you're studying? Hey, why don't you draw it? The second one I think was called Ego. You guys can check me on this too. It's called Ego, and basically what it has is it has a being, I think that's in the lotus position, on the head of this face. This face is impressed upon the darkness. So a lot of times I do like a black base, then I do white lines on top of the base. That's great contrast, but that's also to show energy. And so this face looks kind of serious and kind of focused and kind of explicit in its intent to express itself upon the world. It looks kind of evil. It's kind of good. It looks kind of serious. And this being is on the top of it. So it's implying this idea of the power that the ego has over the self, and that the ego is a part of the human experience. I did another one that had to do with astral projection. I did a few more. I did one that was kind of like a tree being that has like eyes in it. Yeah, so it was like very general metaphysical concepts at first.
That's awesome. And from there, it just continued developing into what we see today, which is essentially these very specific beings, this interconnectedness of energies and energetic interconnection networks.
Yeah, this I think this one right here, network connections. This actually has more in line with the beginning image, the images that I first started drawing for the series. These two images here, a door in the simulation, and this one's called
this is what, I'm sorry?
This is called A Door in the Simulation.
Okay.
Yeah. And then this one's called, I forgot what this one's called. Sorry.
That makes so. I just wanted to tell you that the day after I was here for the opening
Yeah.
of this, I had a dream,
Uh-huh.
and I looked at all of your images, and I have my favorites. I have
Oh, that's
ones
good.
that
Yeah.
that I really like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'll be perfectly sincere. This wasn't one of them. Not that I didn't like it. It's
Yeah.
just that it didn't like call me. It
Yeah.
didn't draw me,
Right.
right?
Right.
There were other ones, like for example, that one, those two in the corner really drew me.
Right.
But I had a dream about this one.
Mhm.
I had a very
Really?
specific dream about this area right here.
Really?
Like I was here in this area right here, and I recognized myself navigating through here and reaching this edge that was separate from the edge of the triangle.
Oh,
Like the edge of the
wow.
patterns being separate from the edge of the triangle.
Yeah.
I instantly recognized that space, and I knew it was this image, and it was absolutely intense.
Mm.
And I recognized a lot of things in that.
Well, that kind of goes along with what I think this code is.
Oh yeah.
But I'm not gonna. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
You'll have
We'll
to
get
interview
into
me
that
again.
later.
You'll have to interview me again if you want to hear about that. That's a whole different conversation.
Wow.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
Wow, thanks for sharing that. That's really
it
cool.
was extremely intense. There was a presence of life, and there was a presence of life, let's just say that.
Yeah.
And I saw how that presence, how I had a connection to that presence.
Right. Right.
And how obviously you did too, because that presence helped you sort of channel this in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, and
Or-
maybe some of it too is maybe I'm not conscious of some of it. Like do you have to be conscious of
Right.
everything you've ever done?
No, I
Yeah.
completely agree. I think that the human being is executing its mission in this world, even if it's not conscious of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that. That's really special.
So yeah.
But I've had a lot of people like message me and say that they've had experiences with those beings too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting as well. I'm not just to clarify something, I'm not like a UFO
Right.
person, although I have friends in that community. I have some really awesome friends in that community who are really who have stories, who have, who believe that they've been abducted and such, and so I'm not discrediting that. I'm just saying that that's also not the purpose. The purpose of these beings is sort of like symbols for illustrating ideas regarding the intelligence of consciousness.
Yes.
And how it doesn't matter if these look like aliens or they look like humans.
Right.
It could be anything. I just, for some reason, there was something that said that this makes sense.
Yes.
And I think it does to whoever it's for.
And I think, well, it's for me because,
Yeah.
because I think that there's a whole idea.
Yeah.
And it's the idea that you're trying to convey.
Yeah.
It comes across really clearly.
Oh, okay.
The fact that existence is complex and high consciousness and technological, and there's experts at it. In the same way that we're elevating consciousness, and one day we will get there, we will be in higher awareness.
Yes.
There's maybe other beings that have already gotten there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think that message conveys really clearly with this, and I think that it's important because we have to convey it to people, right? We have to convey
Right.
to people that this is an important thing. So
Sorry, this one's called visualization flow.
Visualization
remember the name of my
flow.
own pieces. Yes.
Got it.
Yes. So, well, obviously these two are a pair. Yeah.
Right. Oh, are they? Okay.
There's a whole thing to this too. Thank you for sharing that. There's a whole thing to, just so you guys know, maybe we'll talk about this another time, and I'll be talking about this more as I develop more of my graphic novel whenever I get it done. The whole sort of parchment, orangish kind of thing, and then the void sort of approach as well with the blackness. Those are like different ways of thinking about how to see things. So those are systems within the series itself, just so you guys know. That's actually a very deliberate kind of thing. So each piece is portraying this idea of this feels more like paper or like parchment or like this sort of ancient tablet that's being written on. The
Okay.
void thing is more like God reaching into the darkness and pulling light out of it,
Yeah.
using it as a canvas. These are both canvases. Not, I know this is a canvas, but there are many ways to think about the canvas of your life, right? And you're using different mediums in order to realize what you're trying to say. So we're all painting and drawing and 3D modeling and texturing and doing different things. We're all creating, whether you think you're creative or not.
Whether you think you're creative or not, we're all creating.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you just said that. I believe it's actually true. I believe that the purpose of people like you in this world, other than to channel that light that you're receiving out into this world, is to motivate people, to be an example, to be a role model, and to say, look, it's possible. I did it. I organized myself and ordered myself and structured myself through the power of my will to do what I needed to do to be able to be here now doing this.
And I had a lot of help. So you have a lot of people along the way who are like, dude, you got to get like focused, or people who will check you, and you need to be checked sometimes because you're human and you're not perfect and you're stupid sometimes,
Right.
So I had a lot of help. My spouse has helped me immensely.
Absolutely.
But so has everyone who came before my spouse and everyone who's concurrent with my spouse. And Nancy, the gallery owner, has helped me a lot. There's a lot of cool things Nancy said to me. They're so special. And my teachers and my enemy, I don't know if I have any enemies, but like my enemies have said stuff to me that's like true. And I'm like, oh God, you're right.
Right.
Yeah. So like it's not you're not what I think this isn't said a lot, but you're not your own. You are your own in that you need to work on yourself. And this is about you discovering yourself in part. But the selfishness of discovering yourself coincides with your ability to develop the skills to reach other people.
Right.
So if you're
Absolutely.
not selfish in developing your skills and getting in the grind and being serious about that and getting like really intimate with your skills, you can't share that work with people. So when people say, you're selfish, all you do is sit around and draw all the time, like, no, I'm drawing and painting with reason, with purpose. Because at some point in time, the real stuff's going to come out,
Right. Right.
And whatever that is needed. It's needed because it comes out.
Right.
And we're not, I think it's very presumptuous to assume that someone shouldn't be doing something because you don't want them doing that, or because you think that you know better, because you're not good at this and you're not good at it. What you think you're special, you think you're going to be famous. It's not about that. At the end of the day, there was a time when you weren't in your body, and there's going to be a time when you're not in your body again. So this space you have in order to do something, to bring something forward so that we can all grow. It's not just about like the Teslas of the world. Like it's not just about the Elon Musks of the world or the Bill Gates or those people. It's not just about those people. There's all kinds of different things going on. There's different things that we're trying to download and bring into the world. And if you don't do your work, we're missing out on things. But I believe that maybe it doesn't necessarily somebody else will do it. So it's not a bad thing. It's not anything against you because you're scared or whatever. It's just like, why not take up the journey and make that initial investment? That's your spiritual currency that you're adding into the world. It's not cheap incarnating and becoming a human. It's not cheap. That's expensive. The processes are expensive, Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm really, I have a good paying corporate job, but it hasn't been lost on me that people get to this place where they think that that's all that matters because it's how you look in the world. But what are you really adding? That's the question. What are you adding? Are you adding anything? We're all using resources. We're all a tug on the world. We're all a cancer on the world, on the planet Earth. But that's how it's designed. So, okay. So you've been given the ability to be in a human body. What are you going to give us back? What are you going to give back to the world? It's not free. You don't get a free ride. Nobody gets a free ride. Yeah. Sorry. I just had to say that.
No, that's amazing. I completely agree with you. Nobody gets a free ride. And We are here for a reason. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with this life that has been given to you, with this time that is your currency, that is your value? What are you going to exchange this valuable life for, so that when you're no longer here, it will remain in your place forever to
Yeah.
contribute to this humanity?
Yeah.
What is it that you're going to leave here before you're gone?
And it's fun. It's fun to do what you love. There's like a passion in it, man. Like you like it. It's like super powerful. You have fun. It's intimate. It turns you on sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like you can have a couple different things you're doing with your medium, right? So it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be like the drudge of getting up and putting on your clothes and being an adult. You know,
Right.
it's supposed to be something that's natural to you, that you can just go right into, that you can just plug right into. So there's that too. There's this misconception of what is an adult, what is a child, what is a teenager. You know, there's a big misconception.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why we do our best to promote these messages,
Yeah.
to expand consciousness, to understand exactly what it is for the development and the unfolding of the human being and the human consciousness, as opposed to falling into these mind traps that make you think that you're somebody, that you're something, that you're growing, that you're better, that you're whatever, when that consciousness has stopped unfolding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and I think that's pretty in line with what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
So I love it. Kamora, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your insight, your art, your magic, your light. I honestly believe that the purpose of the human being is to funnel the light of heaven out into this world for the purpose of contributing it to humanity. That is the thing that I live for. And I believe that you're doing that in a fantastical way. And I'm sure that you're going to continue to do that in a more effective, efficient, and more grand way than I can't even imagine. So thank you so much for doing what you do for us, for doing what you do for this humanity, for illuminating, for developing, for motivating people, for lighting people up with hope, with passion, with desire to do the thing that you're doing. The thing that we're talking about is probably the good thing to do with this life.
Well, thank you.
So
Yeah, I'm
thank
honored.
you
Thank you
so
so much for
much.
having me. Yeah.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us. Bodhi Life. Check out Artsoldier77 on Instagram. Check out Core Contemporary on Facebook and Instagram as well. Check out Nancy Good. She's been an absolute fabulous host for having this gallery and having us partake in this podcast in her gallery. So check out Core Contemporary in Las Vegas, Artsoldier77 on Instagram, Bodhi Life on Instagram as well at BodhiRP. And thank you so much. God bless. Much love. Peace.